wildfires are natural events and are important to forest ecosystems. Fires need three things to start: oxygen, fuel, and heat. Fuel is any kind of plant or organic material. This includes grasses, shrubs, trees, and fallen pine needles. Wildfires can start from a variety of heat sources. In many cases, drought combined with lightning storms can cause enough heat for a fire to spark. Humans can also start wildfires by not acting safely, like not properly putting out campfires. Make sure there are no hot embers left.
Wildfires impact both land and aquatic, meaning water animals. In this video, we are going to focus on creek ecosystems, but it's important to know that during wildfires, many land animals escape and are displaced. Some animals will seek refuge in the creek. Small creatures may burrow into the ground, hide out in logs, or take cover under rocks. Some animals may wander into more human-populated areas. But how are wildfires important to ecosystems, you ask?
Some plants actually need fire to survive and reproduce. For example, some pine trees store their seeds in cones covered in resin, a sticky, flammable sap, and the heat of wildfires helps to melt the resin, which opens the cone and releases their seeds. This is called serotiny.
Here is a typical pine tree forest canopy. A canopy is like the roof of a forest, a thick layer of branches and leaves that provide shade to the forest floor and streams below. Wildfires can burn the forest canopy, causing the canopy to open, giving young trees more exposure to sunlight.
The riparian zone is the area along a river where plants live and keep the soil in place with their roots. When riparian plants burn, the soil is no longer held in place and floods into the creeks. This is called erosion. Post-fire storm events impact the creeks more than the fire itself. Large rain events after the fire result in more erosion and more input of ash, nutrients, and sediment into the creek. Sediment is a mix of tiny rocks and dirt. In this clip, the light brown color of the water is from normal sediment flow after a rain event, from an area of creek that did not experience fire, whereas the dark water flowing in from the left is a mix of sediment, coal, and ash from an area of creek that did experience fire. Ash that covers the ground can be beneficial as it provides nutrients to young plants.
Sometimes a wildfire can burn so intensely that the ground becomes hydrophobic. The heat of the fire melts plant material, producing a waxy substance that solidifies the soil and blocks water from absorbing into the ground. Hydro means water and phobic means fear, so hydrophobic means that the ground repels water. And here's an example of non-hydrophobic soil, where water seeps into the ground and is absorbed by the roots of plants. Hydrophobic soil leads to more water runoff when rain falls. Runoff is any water moving over the land's surface, like the water you see running down the street into storm drains. More runoff means even more erosion. The combination of increased sunlight and increased nutrients from runoff can cause algae growth in the creeks. Algae is an aquatic plant. It can be dangerous to other aquatic animals if it grows too much too quickly. Algae can create thick layers on the surface of water that can block sunlight for other creek animals, and when the algae dies, it can decrease oxygen in the water, making it hard for aquatic organisms to breathe.
The increase in algae provides a food source for some animals like macroinvertebrates, which are tiny insects that live in the creek. Macroinvertebrates in turn help the rest of the food web as fish, birds, and other animals feed on them. Some macros eat fallen leaves and stuff that grows on fallen leaves, but when the leaves are burnt, their food source is gone. Increased sediment and runoff can also alter the stream bed, removing habitat and some food sources for these insects. But overall, the recovery of macroinvertebrate populations tends to follow the recovery of riparian vegetation. Increased sediment in the creeks can also negatively affect fish populations, some of which are critically endangered. Some sediment can contain dangerous metals from burned urban areas. High levels of sediment and turbidity can overwhelm and kill fish by damaging and clogging gills. Turbidity describes the cloudiness of a liquid. The more sediment floating in the water, the more turbid it is, meaning the water is less clear.
Fine sediment can also fill in spaces between cobbles where fish lay their eggs and potentially cover fish eggs, reducing the amount of oxygen the eggs can use to grow into fry or baby fish. Survival of eggs is dependent on a continuous supply of well-oxygenated water through the gravel. In addition, sediment can fill in important fish habitat, like deep pools and clogged stream channels. On the other hand, trees that burn and fall into the creeks help create new fish habitat. Fish are resilient creatures. Fish will rapidly reoccupy fire-affected streams when their movements are not limited by barriers. Fire crews have to be careful about where they spray fire retardant because it contains chemicals that can kill fish, frogs, salamanders, and insects. As you have seen, some organisms have adapted to living with fire, and some organisms need fire to survive and flourish. It can provide growth to entire ecosystems. Wildfire is natural. Thank you for watching!